Hello, my name is Hannah, and today I want to share something that still makes my voice shake and my eyes tear up. This is not just a story, this is my life. The nights I cried silently so I wouldn't wake my baby, the days I smiled even when my heart was shattered. This is a story of heartbreak, strength, and a mother's love. I raised my baby alone not because I wanted to, but because I had to. They say when a woman becomes a mother, she is reborn, but for me, it felt like I was thrown into a storm without an umbrella. My journey was not soft. It was not peaceful, but every moment was real. Every tear mattered. Every smile my baby gave me was a reward for surviving one more day. Let me take you back to the beginning. It was a warm afternoon when I first found out I was pregnant. I remember standing in the small bathroom of our apartment, holding the test with both hands. My heart was racing, my hands were shaking, and tears rolled down my cheeks not from sadness, but from shock, and maybe a little joy. I was 27. My boyfriend and I had been living together for over a year. We weren't perfect, but I believed we loved each other. When I told him the news, I expected nervousness, even fear, but what I didn't expect was silence. Cold, long silence. He didn't hug me, he didn't smile. He just stared at me like I had ruined his life. The next few days were a blur. He started avoiding me, sleeping in the other room, coming home late, not replying to my messages. I felt the change in the air, like winter arriving early. One morning, I woke up and found the closet half empty. His shoes, his jackets, his books gone. No note, no goodbye. Just gone. I sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. My stomach was starting to grow. A baby was growing inside me, and the person who promised to love me had disappeared. In that moment, I felt abandoned, worthless, alone. But something inside me whispered, "You are not broken. You are just beginning." At first, I didn't know what to do. I had a small job as a receptionist at a clinic. It paid just enough for rent and food, but now I needed more. I needed baby clothes, hospital bills, diapers, a crib. I needed strength. I needed hope. People talk about single mothers with sympathy, but until you become one, you don't understand the weight of every decision. Should I buy milk or save for a doctor's visit? Should I work more hours or go home to rest? There was no one to ask, no one to lean on. I remember one night in particular. I was 7 months pregnant, sitting alone in a small kitchen, eating noodles. The lights were dim, and the silence in the apartment felt louder than a crowd. I held my belly and whispered to the baby, "I don't know how, but I promise I'll protect you." I didn't cry that night. I had cried too much. Instead, I made a plan. I sold some of my clothes and old books online. I picked up extra shifts at work. I started walking everywhere to save money on transport. Every time I felt tired, I touched my belly and remembered that tiny life inside me, my child, my reason, my new beginning. The day I gave birth, I was alone in the hospital room, no hand to hold, no one waiting outside. But when they placed that tiny baby on my chest, I forgot everything else. His eyes were closed, but his little hand gripped my finger. And in that moment, I knew he needed me. And I needed him. I named him Ion. It means God's gift in Arabic. And that's what he was. After I brought Ion home from the hospital, I thought the hardest part was over. I had survived heartbreak, loneliness, and labor. But I was wrong. The real journey had just begun. The first few weeks were the hardest. Ion would cry all night, waking every 2 hours. I was exhausted beyond words. Sometimes I would hold him in my arms, walking back and forth in the small room, whispering, "Please, Just sleep a little, but he wouldn't. His tiny face would wrinkle up, his eyes full of tears, and all I could do was cry with him. There were moments when I felt like I was failing. I would look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back. My hair was always tied in a messy bun, dark circles under my eyes, clothes stained with milk or tears or mine. I couldn't tell anymore. Money was tight, so tight that I often skipped meals so I could buy formula or pay the electricity bill. My job gave me just enough to survive, but I couldn't take time off. I went back to work only 4 weeks after giving birth. I had no choice. Bills didn't wait, and neither did Ion's needs. I found a kind elderly woman in the building who agreed to watch Ion during the day. I trusted her because she had raised 5 children on her own too. Sometimes, she would cook an extra bowl of soup for me and leave it outside my door. That soup tasted better than any feast because it came with warmth and kindness. But at night, it was just me and Ion. And the silence. I would lie in bed after feeding him, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what my life would be like forever. Tired, alone, barely holding on. One night, when Ion was about 4 months old, he got a high fever. I panicked. I wrapped him in a blanket and rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night. I had no car, so I ran 3 blocks to the main road and flagged a taxi. My hands were shaking the entire time. At the hospital, they told me it was a viral infection and gave him medicine, but those hours of waiting, with him burning up in my arms, were the scariest moments of my life. I kept whispering, "Please, stay with me. I can't lose you. You're all I have." That night changed something in me. I realized that being a mother wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, again and again, even when you're exhausted and terrified. It was about being strong not because you are, but because you have to be. As the months passed, Ion started to grow. His cries turned into giggles. His tiny hands reached for my face. He would look at me with big, curious eyes, as if I was his whole world, and maybe I was. He didn't know about the pain I carried. He didn't know about the nights I wept, silently while holding him. All he knew was my voice, my touch, my love. One day, after I got home from work, I was so tired I sat on the floor next to him and closed my eyes. I must have fallen asleep for a few minutes. When I opened my eyes, Ion had crawled over and placed his tiny hand on my cheek, just like I did to comfort him. I burst into tears. Children don't need perfect parents. They just need love. And that day, I realized, despite everything, I was giving him that. There were still hard days. Days when I didn't want to get out of bed. Days when I missed my old life. Days when I wished someone would just hug me and say, "You're doing great." But there was no one. So I became that voice for myself. I started writing letters to myself, encouraging words like, "You are doing something incredible. Your pain is valid, but so is your strength. One day, he will thank you for everything you sacrificed." Those letters became a lifeline. For me, I would read them whenever I felt like giving up. Time moved slowly, but it moved. Ion turned 1. We didn't have a big party, but I made him a small cake with the little money I had. I took a picture of him smashing it with his tiny hands. He laughed so loud, it filled the room with light. That moment felt like a reward for every sleepless night, every tear, every lonely hour. I was still struggling, but I was surviving. I was still scared, but I was stronger. And Ion, he was happy. That was enough for me. As Ion grew older, so did I, not just in age, but in strength, in patience, and in love. Raising him alone was never what I planned. But in many ways, it turned out to be the most powerful experience of my life. There were still hard days, yes. Life didn't suddenly become easy. but I had learned to carry the weight better. I had built a rhythm: wake up before sunrise, prepare breakfast, drop Ion with the babysitter, work all day, come home, cook, clean, play with Ion, tell him a story, then collapse into bed beside him. It was a life without breaks, but it was a life with purpose. Our bond grew deeper with every passing day. He wasn't just my son. He was my friend, my teacher, my mirror. I saw parts of myself in him: his determination, his laughter, his stubbornness. And he saw in me safety, home. I remember one evening when he was around 3 years old. I had just returned from work, tired and frustrated after a very long day. My boss had yelled at me for a mistake that wasn't even mine. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just sat on the floor and closed my eyes. Ion came over, sat beside me, and placed his favorite toy truck in my lap. "Here, Mama," he said in his tiny voice. "You can play with this. It will make you happy." I didn't say a word. I just hugged him, and in that hug, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Children don't know how much they give us. With just a look, a word, a touch, they heal wounds we didn't even know were open. There were many such small moments that built our bond, like bricks forming a strong wall. Every bedtime story, every silly dance in the kitchen, every quiet meal together, these weren't just routines. They were memories. They were love being built silently, slowly. When Ion started school, I was so nervous. I wondered how he would feel, what he would say when I left him at the gate. But he surprised me. He hugged me tightly and said, "Don't cry, Mama, I'll come back." I laughed through my tears. My little boy, comforting me. He did come back, and every day he brought home drawing stick figures of me and him holding hands. Big smiles on our faces, suns and rainbows in the sky. I saved them all. They were treasures. People often ask me, "How did you do it all alone?" And I always answered the same way. I wasn't alone. I had my son. He didn't speak in full sentences at first. He didn't earn money or cook or clean. But he gave me something more powerful than all of that. He gave me a reason to live. Every time I wanted to give up, I looked at him. Every time I doubted myself, I heard him say, "I love you, Mama." Every time I felt invisible to the world, his eyes reminded me that to him, I was everything. Years passed. I worked hard, saved a little money, took night classes to improve my skills. Eventually, I got a better job, one that gave me more time with Ion. We moved to a slightly bigger apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it had a small balcony with flowers and a corner for Ion to keep his books. I still cried sometimes. I still missed having someone to share the burden. But I no longer felt broken. I no longer felt ashamed. I had built a life, and I had built it with love. Ayan is 9 now. He reads books out loud to me, helps me with grocery lists, and sometimes even tries to cook eggs on Sunday mornings. He tells his friends, "My mama is a superhero. She does everything, and maybe, just maybe, I am." Not because I'm perfect, but because I kept going. I stayed when it was hard. I loved even when I was empty. I showed up every single day, no matter how tired I was. So to anyone listening right now, if you're a single parent, or going through something that feels impossible, I want to say this: you are not alone. You are enough. You are stronger than you think. The road is hard, yes, but the bond you create, the love you give and receive it, is worth more than anything this world can offer. I raised my baby alone, but he raised me too, and together, we made it. So this was my story of pain, of survival, and of a love that asked for everything and gave back even more. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have help, but I had a little pair of eyes watching me every day, learning from my strength. And that made every tear worth it. If you're listening to this and feel like you're walking through life alone, please remember, even the quietest love can build the loudest strength. You are not just surviving, you are becoming. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones raising tiny humans with a heart full of love and hands that never rest.